Hello, Year 11, and welcome to poem 4 out of 14. This is The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. This is a thrush. It's a kind of bird, a small bird that you often get in your garden, at least you do in England. And this is what the last part of the poem is about, and obviously the title as well. So stanza 1, we're going to read it together, and I'd like you to stop and make notes on new words that we come across. I leant upon a coppice gate. This is a coppice, an area of woodland, a small area of woodland, often surrounded by a fence, and this is a gate. When frost was spectra grey. This is frost. When frost was spectra grey. Spectra is a ghost. So when frost was grey like a ghost. Notice here as well that frost has a capital letter. You might want to think about why it does. And winter's dregs made desolate. Dregs are the most worthless parts of something, or the smallest parts. Also notice that winter has a capital letter. You might want to think why it does. And winter's dregs made desolate. Desolate means uninhabited or feeling a great sense of unhappiness or loneliness. So a place can be desolate and a person can be desolate. The weakening eye of day. The tangled vine stems scored the sky. Tangled means twisted together messily. The tangled vine stems scored the sky. These are vine stems. Stems that go around the tree or a branch. The tangled vine stems scored the sky. Scored means cut into. Like strings of broken lyres. This is a lyre, an old musical instrument, a classical musical instrument, much like a harp. And all mankind that haunted nigh. Nigh means near or in the area. So all mankind that haunted nearby. Had sought their household fires. Stanza 2. The land's sharp features seemed to be the century's corpse outlent. A century is 100 years. But it doesn't normally have a capital letter, but it does in this case. I'd like you to think why. So the century's corpse outlent. A corpse is a dead body, and outlent is a made-up word. I would guess it means that the dead body of the century sticks out. His crypt the cloudy canopy. Crypt is an underground room in a church, often used for burial. And canopy, his crypt the cloudy canopy. This is a canopy. So when you have a layer of trees at the branches coming over at the top like this, almost like it hides the sky. The wind his death lament. Death lament is a song or poem expressing grief about a death. So it was like the wind was singing about the death of the century. The ancient pulse of germ and birth. Pulse is a seed. Germ means germination, so the process when a seed grows into a plant. Was shrunken, hard and dry. Shrunken is the past tense of shrink or to get smaller. And every spirit upon the earth seemed fervorless as I. Fervorless means without intense passion. Stanza 3. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead. Bleak means without leaves, and twigs are these little things coming off the branches. In a full-hearted evensong. Evensong is an evening service of prayers. Of joy, illimited. Illimited means unlimited. It's an old-fashioned, archaic word. An aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small. Aged is old. Thrush, as we saw before, is a bird. Frail is weak. Gaunt is thin because of age or ill health. In blast, blustered plume. Blast, blustered plume. You could just say that aloud. Blast, blustered plume. And listen to the alliteration and consonation in there. A blast, blustered plume means a feather ruffling wind. So it's so windy that the bird's feathers are disordered. Had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom. Fling is throw in a dramatic way, and gloom is darkness. Okay, just something very quick about the structure, but we will look at this in class. It's a very neat structure. You can see that there are 3 stanzas. Each stanza has 8 lines. Each line has the same amount of syllables, and it's a very traditional rhyme scheme. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, gate and desolate, rhyme. Grey and day, rhyme. Sky and nigh, rhyme. And liars and fires, rhyme. Okay, so we have looked through at the definitions of the words in the poem, but I'm guessing that you need some help understanding what the poem is about. So we'll go back to the beginning and we will look through and talk about each stanza and what it means. It's important to see when this was written in 1900. But it was written actually on New Year's Eve of 1899, and it's all about seeing in the new century, saying goodbye to the old century and seeing in the new century. So I leant upon a coppice gate. I was leaning on a gate when frost was spectre grey, and the whole the landscape is barren. It's winter time again. It is grey, there's frost, and it looks almost ghoulish or ghost-like. And winter's dregs, it's the worst part of winter, the real middle of winter when it's cold and miserable. It's made desolate, it's isolated, the weakening eye of day. This is when it's getting dark, so the weakening eye of day, so the daylight is getting weaker. Next one. Sorry. The tangled vine stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres. So the tangled stems of the trees scored into the sky or cut into the sky, and he's comparing the vine stems to the strings from a broken musical instrument, and you can see how they would look very similar. And all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. So people who are haunting the area around had all disappeared into their houses to sit by their fires. And this adds to the scene of isolation. There is nobody outside in this bleak landscape. You'll notice throughout this poem that he never mentions a person or people. He talks about mankind and spirits, and even he personifies the weather and the season, but he never, and then of course there's the bird in here as well, but he never mentions a person. You might like to think why. So moving on to the second part of the stanza, the land's, into stanza 2. The land's sharp features seem to be the century's corpse outleant. The sharp features of the land, the landscape that he's looking at, seemed to be like the dead body of the century that has just finished, the 1800s, the 19th century. And you can see that there's a metaphor here between the sharp features of the land and the corpse of the century. His crypt, the cloudy canopy, so the place where the century has been laid down to die, is the cloudy canopy in this corpse that was spoken about in the first line. And the wind that is howling through the area, remember it's winter time, is like the song for the death of the century. The ancient pulse of germ and birth was shrunken, hard and dry. So the germination of seeds, and which are then born into plants, was shrunken, hard and dry. So it's wintertime, there's nothing growing, the ground is hard and dry, and every spirit upon the earth seemed fatherless as I. Every spirit, he means every person here, but again he said spirit instead of person. So everybody on this earth seemed just as uninterested as he does. Everybody is playing dead almost. They are not interested, they are just giving up. And you just want to shake them and say, come on. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead in a full-hearted, even song. This is when the thrush, the bird, is introduced into the poem. And we are introduced to him through his voice. We can hear him singing. So we can hear the bird singing through the twigs. And this thrush is old, he's weak, he's frail, and his body is being blasted by this wind. But he's chosen to sing and not give up. Even though he's probably close to death, he is going to sing. He's bringing joy to a dark, dark land. And moving on to the last stanza. Oops. Okay, my apologies. I realized that I have missed out a stanza and we've run out of time. So that will be in class tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Bye.